We're in the thick of the madness, and we've got somebody to help us interpret it. Christie Sides, head coach, Indiana Fever, always insightful, a lot to talk about, present and future. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win. Good!
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy first four. Oh, I'm so excited about it. We get a doubleheader coming up tonight. Get to see Columbia Vanderbilt at 9. It's particularly tasty. Sacred Heart and Sarah Pryor. Don't miss her. You can overlook her sometime because you're only 5'3". It's here. Welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal. Thanking you for making us your first listen every day. You guys show up for us, over 180,000 of you in February alone. We're going to break that mark easily in March, the way we show up for you 6 days a week. And of course, it is not just me. It is the incredible team across the board over at The Next, where we have over 100 reported pieces every month on women's basketball. TheNextHoops.com, $9 a month, $72 a year to subscribe. Get it in your inbox. Support the work. We have people at 11 of the 16 venues this weekend for the NCAA tournament. We even have the great Bella Munson over at the WBIT, TheNextHoops.com. And Christie Sides, we have a few storylines that relate to the Indiana Fever currently moving forward. We'll get into each and all of them, but I guess where I'd like to start with you is, how nerve-wracking is it knowing you guys have the number one pick and just sitting there, oh my God, who are we going to choose, right? The not knowing, is it killing you? Is the suspense killing you?
Yeah, I mean, with the COVID situation, not knowing who's going to be in the draft, who's going to decide to stay, it really, gets in the way of your preparation a little bit.
I know it does.
Just a little bit. You have to come up,
right? I know.
Yeah. So you plan for several different scenarios, right? Yeah. And that can take a lot of time and energy, but I mean, we're getting to watch basketball, right? And that's what we all love to do. And so my staff and Lynn Dunn, I mean, she's on top of everything. We have our weekly meetings. We've had them since the end of the season. And she's just constantly, throwing out so much information and knowledge, and we're learning from her. But just her outlook and the way she sees things with the Fever and moving forward and who she's interested in. Sometimes you're like, huh? And then you're like, I get it now. I mean, she tells us what she's thinking. So yeah, it's a nerve-wracking process. It's a great, look at the options that are out there. I mean, how exciting, for the Fever and moving, in a direction that, we started last season and to keep moving in that upward trajectory.
In the event you're able to get a playmaking talent with that first overall pick, somebody who you can pair with Aliyah Boston, NaLyssa Smith. Coming into the offseason, Lynn talked about this, that's essentially your number one area of need. Certainly you have that certainty of knowing you get to choose at one, that you get to select it. Now there's more certainty as some of the top players from, Caitlin and Cameron are announcing it. And that obviously affects down ballot, 15 and 27. But have you allowed yourself to be thinking in strategic terms, to think about how that's all going to come together?
Yeah. At the end of the season last year, we kind of came together and really had some long and hard conversations just to talk about exactly what we needed to put on the floor to be a playoff team. And that is the goal of the Indiana Fever, is to get back into the playoffs this year and without skipping any steps, because, the excitement of the second time in a row number one pick gets people thinking, hey, it's time. But you've got you've got Vegas and you've got New York and you've got Phoenix and you've got Seattle. You know, it's going to be challenging. And, you know, we're only a year into it with these young players. But yeah, we do have an idea of what we need. Our goal is to have 5 players out on that floor that can shoot the basketball, who can not just shoot it, but make threes. I think one of the stats that just really drives me crazy is I think we led the league in missed wide open 3-point shots this year. And our offense is to create those wide open looks for players. And we've just we've got to knock them down. I mean, we had them last year, I mean, everyone knows and talks about how many close games we had. We're 1 and 2 possessions away. You know, but we've got to have players that have the confidence to get out there and knock down those wide open shots. And so that's what we've been really looking for this offseason.
Couple of things, and we'll get into, to me, it's the best case scenario offseason for you guys, and not just number 1 overall, but everything. And Katie Lou Samuelson being the type of shooter, the type of floor spacer, who to me is exactly what this roster needed. But in terms of the numbers, when you drill down, you guys were already monsters on the boards. You were second in the lead in offensive rebound rate. You were 3rd overall in total rebound rate, and that reflects a big combo of NaLyssa Smith and Aliyah Boston. How much did the way in which they played well together set the stage for knowing precisely what you needed out of this offseason?
Yeah. You know, we've got to take a little heat off of Aliyah. You know, that was one thing that people, you know, constantly were doubling her in the post. We wanted to make it, you have to make a decision, pick your poison, you know, on who you want to guard for us. And so, yeah, Katie Lou added one of those, you know, she's a weapon. She's a 3, you know, she can knock down she can knock down wide open threes. She was on our list from the beginning of players that can do that to fit that need. Aliyah and AB, you know, they're such a young force together. I mean, it's so exciting, when I've coached in this league long enough, when you have 2 players like that you can play through, that just opens up for everything else. And so that was one of the things that we had to talk about last year with a young team who had, you know, we had to add some structure and some discipline, and for them to understand how we're going to play is we're not trying to just throw it in and cram it down their throats, but they take so much heat off and give, you know, our outside, it just creates so much open space. And so we, to have the ability to do that with those 2, and then also Aliyah's 3-point shooting just shocked all of us whenever she started making threes, and we're like, I didn't really know that was, you know, that we've changed that now. I mean, we're, you know, she is going to be a threat from out there this year, which 5 players on the floor that can shoot the 3 makes it tough on the opposing teams.
I mean, something Dawn Staley does is she preps her players not just for her level, but for the next level as well. And so, you know, knowing that Aliyah was going to a lead where a stretch 5 was important to a certain extent. I know it's your coaching staff and you guys coach people up, but having them ready is obviously significant. And to your larger point about 5 out, then a number that I love is Kelsey Mitchell. When you look at where she is on catch and shoot, she was 1.34 points per possession per synergy. On the off chance that you get a playmaker who has the ball in her hands primarily as a starter alongside Kelsey Mitchell, I mean, who knows? It could happen. It could happen in the draft this year. If that happened, how excited are you to be able to see Kelsey being able to create as in both a catch and shoot player and as a secondary facilitator as well?
Yeah. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell, becoming an all-star this year for the first time. There's a reason behind all the things, the success and the efficiency that Kelsey Mitchell had this year, without a doubt. And that was adding players to help her. I mean, she has done everything for this franchise. And for her, Pokey and I drafted her when we were with Indiana before. So just to see her and her growth and her maturity, I mean, she's one of the best 2 guards in the league, no doubt. And I mean, there were times, I mean, Kelsey, when you go back and look at our end of games or just needing a bucket, Kelsey Mitchell is her ability to do that is unbelievable. And then to have somebody else out there along with the other, 3 players with her and Kelsey to just draw some of that attention. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only going to help Kelsey, in all those categories, improve even more.
Going to be huge. So excited to see who that player might be. Going to be a real mystery leading up to April 15th. So back with more, talking about the players who are there already, as well as just the way in which you're consuming basketball, which I'm always fascinated by that for those who are in the profession about it. So more of that in segment 2, talking all about March. Right back with Christie Sides, Howard Megdal, Locked On Women's Basketball. But first, I want to talk to you guys about eBay Motors, one of our sponsors today. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your car alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, which is, thank goodness, because I don't know anything about cars, but eBay Motors does. So they can level you up to peak performance from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights. That's what allows you to drive in the dark. That I do know. It's one thing I do. eBay Motors has you covered. Over 122 million parts for your ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. I just put my car in, I look for the little green check mark. Okay, then I know it. Because with eBay Motors, you get that opportunity and at the right price. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So back with Christie Sides, who, and those longtime listeners on this program, was overdue, I have said, to get that coaching opportunity. Now getting to coach a team that, you're right, there are a lot of teams to overcome. Indy has to overcome Las Vegas, New York. I mean, listen, Atlanta's roster very well from your time down there, and Seattle, Pokey always knows how to put together a roster to win. But that said, it has to feel, I'm sort of set the agenda, right? 5-31 2 years ago, you come in, didn't make the playoffs, but played a lot of close games. And to my mind, we're clearly one of the 8 top teams by the end of last year. We're clearly one of those teams. Does it feel realer to you, seeing the pieces into place, seeing players come together as you head into this spring season in the WNBA?
Yeah, Howard, last year was tough for, the players, for, my staff and all of us, just because there was so much that had to change. And at the end of the day, like, we had to focus on some things that were going to establish us for sustainable success, right? Like, we want to win. I mean, good Lord, you shouldn't be doing this if you don't want to win or don't think you can win every game. And we believe we could, but we had to make sure we didn't let things slide. And we, that we have that the games that we lost that were close last year, we are talking about and watching and practicing those same scenarios. Even, you talked about the end of our season. I mean, we won 5 of our eight games last year, an overtime game at Dallas when, we had just been eliminated from the playoffs, which was the last 2 weeks of the season, which it's been a while since, we were in that fight and that hustle. But, learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about my coaching staff. For me, that's been the biggest thing. I'm able, after being with those guys for a year, I know their strengths. I know what they're really good at. So now I've got to make sure now I put them in those positions so that they can help me. And I can do more to delegate and give them and let them be great in their areas that they're really good at. So, that for me.
Can I ask you about that? So can you give me an example where the rubber hits the road? What's a thing that you are now delegating into whom? That's so interesting to me.
Okay. Here's a big one. I hired Paul Miller, Jesse Miller, and Karima Christmas Kelly. So when I went into it, Jessie is my number one assistant. You know, I called her the minute I got the job and said, hey, I don't want to do this if you're not on board with me. She has a great basketball mind. She's a great workhorse. She is the biggest team player. She's ready to do whatever. And Jessie, I asked her, I was like, where do you want to focus? The offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball? She was like, I would love the offensive side of the ball. Great. Well, then Paul Miller, who I hired from the Bulls, who I named my defensive coach at the time. And it's perfectly okay where your passion lies. And come to find out, this man his brain is thinking X's and O's offense all the time. I mean, he is like a machine. So we kind of shifted a little bit throughout the season. But Jessie she's actually a defensive minded coach. She wanted that responsibility, but now I've moved them. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we have a lot of work to do on the defensive side of the ball. So as soon as the season was over with, made the change. She's been working in the off season, you know, working on, we're not going to be last in the league. We're not going to, in defense. I mean, we're going to find a way to, our goal is to be 5, 6, 7. And mm-hmm. She's put together some great ideas that are going to help us get there.
I think it's worth noting, and I've talked about your impact already, but one of the primary ways to me that we can measure it is out of timeouts, ATO numbers. And I think you get a sense of what a coach is able to do here. And so I just want to point out, and this is per synergy, points per possession, ATO last year. Las Vegas is 1, New York Liberty is 3. You guys are 2 coming out of that. When you have the opportunity to plan, that says everything to me. You guys right there with the 2 finalists. It really does come down to now, where are the players who are coming in and allowing you to not just be in an ATO scenario, but to be every possession up and down there. So just something I think the audience needs to keep in mind. And so I asked this question with that very specifically in mind. When you're consuming basketball here in the off season, how are you doing it? How many games are you watching a day? Are you watching film? Is it synergy? Are you somebody who believes in live looks first and always? You know, just kind of take me through what your basketball diet is.
Yeah. So for me, you know, we went on that 8-game slide in the middle of the year. And so I'm always, there's so many things I could have done differently. And that's why it was so great for me to have this year under my belt, you know, with personnel and coaching staff. But I have watched those 8 games five times since the end of the season, and breaking everything down, every single possession, especially after halftime. Like, you know, there were so many games where we were down 20, Howard, like we were down 20 early, and we spent so much energy coming back and fighting back, which that was for me, the biggest compliment from other coaches in the league was just how hard the Indiana Fever played. To me, when you tell me that, like, we'll figure out the small adjustments to make to get those, you know, wins in that column, but they play hard. So you're already ahead. Like, you're good. Like, you can do some things with that. Right. So it's just trying to figure out how we broke down our defense in our meeting this last week. I met with our staff, and we're 3 points away from being 11-12 to being 7. And we led the league in fouls. We led the league in opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. So, you know, 1 or 2%. And you talked about our rebounds. I didn't think we were great defensively. I mean, we were really good offensively. We pick up a couple, you know, they don't get second chance opportunities. That's 1 possession or 2 possessions, 3 points. We're right there. So it's one of the things that we're harping on this offseason and coming into the season is live in the details. We've got to live in every single detail from the start of training camp. And what's exciting for us is training camp isn't starting from 0. We're starting from right where we left off, which is so exciting, especially since we play our first preseason game, you know, 5 days after we start. So you're supposed to gel and mesh all these teams together in this amount of time. And, you know, that's just been the secret to success in the league, is to figure out how to get your teams to do that early. And that takes time and years and a process and a system. And we were showing that last 10, 12 games of the season, which was, to me, right where we should have been.
I mean, right down to that last game. That last game was such an eye-opener from my perspective, from an outside perspective, Minnesota had something to play for, quote unquote, when you guys were eliminated, and go put up an 87-71 win like that, put up 32 in the first, to come out there, that really stuck with me. And I would imagine matters in significant ways to the way you and that team is thinking about 2024. I want to talk more about that because, man, 2024 in Indiana is going to be really exciting. So we're going to be back in segment 3 talking all about that here with Christie Sides, head coach of the Indiana Fever. Back with you in just a moment. But first, I want to talk to you guys about the different options that Nissan, one of our sponsors today, gives you to be able to go on adventures. And so the Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives, great escapes. Doesn't matter what you're doing. It has class exclusive Google built in as an updating assistant. So you don't have to play around with buttons. You just call on it and it tells you what you need to know on a 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. It's got Google Maps. I do a lot of travel for work. It is very useful to have Google Maps to know where I'm going. I would get lost on my own. The 2024 Road is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure, but it's not the only Nissan option. You got the Pathfinder. Let's say you got a larger family. It's got room up to 8, up to 6,000 pounds towing, 284 horsepower. If you're taking an adventure this summer, I don't know, maybe a drive out to Indiana, the Nissan Pathfinder is there to answer. And there's, of course, the Nissan Armada. It will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. It's a rugged 4x4 that seats up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger, explore further with the 2024 Nissan Armada. Go to your local Nissan dealership and go find your next adventure, or look right now. Shop at nissanusa.com. May 14th is not that far away, less than 2 months away. We will be in the same place, Coach, and Mohegan Sun Arena, seeing that first regular season matchup against the Connecticut Sun. Nice, easy way to start. Just have to figure out how to guard Alyssa Thomas. Shouldn't be much of a.
If you can let me know, Howard, if you have any thoughts and ideas on that, please.
I got nothing. I don't know how to do it either.
Yeah.
It's going to be fascinating to see. And again, without getting into names or details, there's a bigger focus on the Indiana Fever than there's been in a long time. Now, you are no stranger, obviously, to the spotlight. Listeners at home, I hope know this, but your history in this game dating back to your Final Four days at Louisiana Tech, you have always been around big time moments in the game, but you have devoted your life to it. And I guess I wonder, as you've processed what's coming, have you let yourself think about what it means to be front and center for a moment in time in this league, in this game, unlike, I would argue, any we've seen before?
Yeah, man, it's a different time. These college athletes they've created a buzz at a whole different level, which has helped, make more excitement in the W, which I love so much. The WNBA is just an incredible league, and we're working all the time to try to figure out how to make it better, how to keep our athletes, how to help them have the most incredible experience. And that's number one, what we're trying to do. And I work in an organization where I'm so lucky and so blessed. The Fever and the ownership, and they have created everything and given us everything for us to be successful. I mean, all of our resources, practice facility, locker room, everything. I mean, we're able to provide such a great experience now for our players with what they've provided. And I couldn't thank them enough. Just this excitement around the Fever right now. Let's talk, like you said that a minute ago. I mean, I'm not a big social media person, but social media buzz. I know inquiries, ticket sales, all of that. I had a lunch with our ticket sales people. I wanted to say thank you for all their hard work. So we had lunch with them the other day, and just sitting there talking to some of them, it kind of put it in perspective for me. One young lady was telling me about how many accounts that she had last year, season ticket holder accounts. And I think she said like 7. And then she said, but I'm up to plus 100 right now herself. Like when she said that, I'm like, you're supposed to keep 7 season ticket holders happy throughout the season. Now you've got 100 plus 100. And that just went down the line with, all of those guys. And they've put in some long hours to make sure that we come out and have the most unbelievable home court experience for our first home game. It's going to be a tough one. I mean, we have no easy games to start. The month of May for the Indiana Fever is going to be tough. So we're, up for the challenge. To me, that just sets us up for being ready later on in the season.
And I guess to that end, you talk about it. It's worth remembering, right? I'm double checking it. Yes. So you start at Connecticut, home for the Liberty. You're back out here on the East Coast for the Liberty. So a home and home with that team, and then back hosting the Sun. And then you've got the Seattle Storm, who have added a couple of decent pieces. And
Howard, let's just keep having good. Let's talk about other things. Like,
all right,
let's talk about offense. Let's talk something. Like, good Lord,
save that stress.
I know it's coming. It's coming.
We'll save that stress. We'll talk about it in person when that time comes up.
Yes.
I want to talk about March Madness for you. And like I said, dating back to your collegiate days, you have been a central part of it in so many different ways, whether it's your time at LSU, again, your playing days at Louisiana Tech. What is your strategy for consuming all the games that are coming this weekend? Starting, obviously you got the first 4s the next couple of nights, but like, what do? Do you have multiple TVs on? What's your setup? How are you watching?
Yeah, there's usually an iPad, a computer, TV going at the same time. It's a tug of war because you want to be there watching games, but if you're at a certain game, you're not able to watch all the other games. So this is a conversation that Lynn and I've had. There's certain games that we'll be at, and there's certain games like we need to be where we can see things that are happening going on around the same time. So it's an exciting time of year. I think, after watching the selection show, wow. Like there's just some early games that are going to be just exciting to watch.
You have any objections? Any seeds that are too low? Anyone who should have been in? Now's your chance.
I'm going to leave that to the selection committee. I know they have a tough job to do, and I get it. So I'm going to leave that to them. But they have made for some real exciting games early. Just players who played at certain places before. It's just a lot of things that are going to be fun to watch this weekend and the next.
I've got Louisville LSU circled if that comes to pass, especially the Helly Van Lith game is going to be a lot of fun. And listen, there's a lot of talk about Iowa Iowa making a run. Princeton in the second round, if Princeton gets by West Virginia and Iowa wins their 116, which we're assuming they will, that is no easy task. I have seen that Princeton team up close all year. That's going to be a handful for Lisa Bluder. So yes, so much to come. Really excited to get to experience all of it. And again, delighted that come April 15th, finally, you'll have a sense of who that number one pick is going to be. The mystery will finally come to an end. Christie Sides, thank you for your time and for indulging my sarcasm to our listeners. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Upgrade in the host chair. Gigi Spear joins you. So congratulations to everyone for that. Until then, I am Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful Wednesday. Enjoy the March Madness.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.